Good morning, college football fans. Welcome back to another edition of SEC Kickoff. I'm Vince Dooley. As we enter week number 6 of the season, the intensity on the field is only building from week to week, and this week is really important. Games are becoming more important as teams battle to stay in position for the conference championship. Before we preview this weekend's key matchups, let's look back at some action from Week 5. In a ball game that we could talk about for an hour, Georgia made the key plays in the fourth quarter to beat a Tennessee team that had a lot of firepower. And the score, 51-44, which is a record for those two teams. Georgia had a 17-point lead early, thanks primarily to the running of the best freshman duo running backs in the country in Todd Gurley.
Here's the handoff to Gurley again. He's also got a lot of speed and resiliency and the touchdown.
Who had 130 yards, and Keith Marshall, who had 164 yards. Between the two, they ran the ball 34 times, which ironically was Heisman Trophy winner Herschel Walker's number, and they scored 5 touchdowns between them. Gurley is first in the conference, and Marshall is 5th in the SEC in rushing. Georgia turnovers got the Bulldogs in trouble, and Tennessee fought back to tie the game at halftime 30-30. The game was wild in a lot of ways, with 7 turnovers between the two teams, who both had a kicking game that you might describe as a nightmare. In the final analysis, though, Georgia made the plays with 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery to stop Tennessee's bid for a big upset. In this week's Football 101, I want to take a closer look at the Georgia running game. The freshman duo of Keith Marshall and Todd Gurley has generated a great deal of excitement in Athens. But as far as I'm concerned, they're the best 2 running backs, freshmen, on one team that I've ever seen in the Southeastern Conference. Marshall, who has terrific speed, has already had a long run for a touchdown against Tennessee, and this is Gurley's chance to show not so much his speed, but he does have good speed, but also the strength in his legs. On this particular play, it was designed primarily to go inside, but because of Tennessee's in and tackle coming down, the fullback blocked and Gurley slipped outside. This receiver went out, but as Gurley turned upfield, and whenever you get a good back going north and south, they are hard to tackle, particularly one that has strong legs. But Tennessee did not do a very good job of tackling. In fact, I've seen a lot of secondary people not tackle very well because they don't keep their legs under them. And in this case, 3 of the secondary players of Tennessee missed tackles on Gurley, who went on in to score. All right, now let's shift our focus to the upcoming weekend. In this week's Head Coach 101, we sat down with Georgia head coach Mark Richt. Coach Richt and his Georgia team are preparing for a big Eastern Division matchup with the South Carolina Gamecocks in Columbia.
Well, we just got to be a team that takes care of all of our opportunities. I mean, you're going to have chances for a turnover. You're going to have chances to make plays. You're going to have chances to, make a kick at the crucial moment. And I think that we've got a good football team, and I think statistically we'll do well in a lot of areas. But, are we going to make the play when we have to? When we have to get one more stop to win a certain game that will take us to Atlanta, will we be able to do that? And so we got to be able to not only make plays all year long, but make them at the moment of truth when you've got to have it to win the game.
Now that we've heard from Coach Richt, let's take a look at Saturday's big game between the Bulldogs and the Gamecocks. Georgia and South Carolina. This is the first time ever both teams are ranked in the top 10. In 1980, when I was coaching at Georgia, there was a classic matchup in Athens between freshman running back Herschel Walker, a future Heisman Trophy winner at the time, and George Rogers, who won the Heisman Trophy that year. Georgia was ranked 4th that year and won the game 13-10, although South Carolina, who was ranked 14, but they should have been ranked higher. This year's game should be a battle royal between two talented teams with a lot of playmakers. Unfortunately, Georgia lost one of those playmakers in receiver Michael Bennett, who tore his ACL in practice this week. Fortunately, Georgia has a lot of receivers, and I'm sure they'll be able to take up the slack because they have an offense that's leading the SEC in scoring at 47-plus points per game. And they're 7th nationally in total offense, and Aaron Murray, the quarterback, leads the SEC in quarterback rating, while South Carolina, at the same time, is 6th in the United States in scoring defense with 11 points a game and 2nd in the nation in sacks. And that's going to be a big factor in this football game, is rushing the passer, and South Carolina can do that very well with people up front that are huge. One is 6'6", the other is 6'8". This game is so close that it will come down to what always big games come down to, and that is turnovers. South Carolina has the home field advantage. It's going to be which of those playmakers are going to make plays at the right time. Regardless, whoever wins this football game is in a position that if they continue on, they got a good chance to be a real contender for a national championship down the line. Saturday afternoon, Les Miles and his LSU Tigers travel to Gainesville to take on the Florida Gators in the Swamp. For this week's SEC Flashback, we jump back to 2010 and the last time LSU visited Florida. Coach Miles sure had the mojo working late in the game as the Tigers pulled out all the stops to defeat the Gators.
A whole lot of difference between kicking and pregame and kicking with 35 seconds left to send the game into overtime.
This will be for the tie. It's a fake. They pitch it. Can you believe this?
Not only did they get it, but it was a bad flip. He had to catch it off the bounce, and now they've got to spike the ball. The clock will reset, and they'll spike the football.
And Derek Helton, the holder. Is it a forward pass and thus an incompletion, or is it a pitch?
After review, the call on the field stands. It is a first down, LSU.
Pressure on Lee. Gets rid of it. Here goes Tolliver. Inside the 5.
Now the clock will stop.
Lee going for it again.
Got it.
Terrence Tolliver calls it in. LSU takes the lead with 6 seconds to go.
Well, I've seen a lot of fake field goals over the years, but I don't believe I've ever seen one quite like that. The Tigers and Gators get together at 3:30 Eastern on Saturday afternoon. CBS will have the coverage, but here is what I'll be watching for. LSU at Florida. No doubt, the number 3 ranked defensive team in the country, LSU, despite the inexperience of their quarterback, will be ready to play a top game, which is a far cry from the performance of the Tigers the last 2 weeks against a courageous but inferior teams in Auburn and Townsend. Turnovers have really plagued LSU. LSU better be ready for their best performance, because Florida, whose win on the road against Texas A&M, looks more impressive each week. The Gators will be ready after an open date and certainly playing at home. Florida is in a prime position to upset, though it may not be an upset, the number 4 team in the country, LSU. While it's natural the games in Columbia and Gainesville will get most of the attention, there are several other key matchups this weekend. Here's a quick rundown on the rest of Saturday's SEC schedule. Well, SEC fans, that's a wrap on another episode of SEC Kickoff. Enjoy the games, and I will see you again next week as we kick off another SEC weekend.